She forged my signature and moved into my father's house like she owned it. She told the neighbors I was mentally unstable. I was grieving my father. And she was selling his furniture on Facebook Marketplace. But she didn't know I kept the original power of attorney. And when I walked into court, she went pale. Because the only thing she'd be inheriting was a criminal record. My name is Rachel Myers. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. And 3 weeks after my father passed away from a sudden stroke, I found out someone had moved into his house. That someone was my cousin, Lana. You see, just days before he died, my dad had signed over power of attorney to me. He wanted me to take care of things. He trusted me. He loved me. And I was still grieving when it all started unraveling. The first sign I went to check the house and found the locks changed. No warning. No explanation. I stood there with my hand on the doorknob, punching in the old code, when a voice shouted through the door. "Rachel, you shouldn't be here." It was Lana, in my father's robe. She cracked the door open, peered at me through the chain like I was a stranger. "Lana, what are you doing?" I asked. She blinked at me with fake surprise. "Rachel, honey, you're not supposed to be out. Didn't the doctor say you need rest?" My blood ran cold, and what are you talking about? She gave me this pitying look. "Sweetheart, you've been under a lot of stress. I've told the neighbors to keep an eye out, just in case you wander." That was the moment I knew something was wrong. Deeply, disturbingly wrong. I turned and left. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I got into my car and drove away, but my hands were trembling on the wheel. She was gaslighting me, making it seem like I had lost my mind, and I had no idea how far she had already gone. The next day, my phone stopped working. Calls kept getting redirected. My bank app said I had limited access due to authorization changes. I checked my father's estate records online. Lana had submitted a power of attorney document claiming full control, a different version than the one Dad had signed with me. And that signature, it wasn't mine. It was a forgery. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was losing everything my dad, his legacy, my reality. It felt like drowning while everyone else watched and smiled. But I wasn't broken. No, I went quiet, I went dark, and I started gathering every shred of proof I could. I knew my dad's attorney, Mr. Peterson. He was old school, but meticulous. I called him and asked if he still had the original power of attorney. He did. We met the next morning at a small cafe downtown. I held the document in my hands, his signature. My name. Notarized properly just 2 weeks before he passed. It was real, and more importantly, it was legal. Lana's copy, it had been filed after Dad's death. Illegal, fraudulent, and utterly heartless. But still she had the house, the money, the access. And I had nothing, yet. I went home, locked the door, and opened a new notebook. On the first page, I wrote one word. I made a list. Every piece of mail Lana redirected. Every item she sold from the house. Every statement she made online. Every neighbor she manipulated. And I didn't tell a soul. Because the next time I showed up, it wouldn't be at the front door. It would be in court. I spent the next 2 days in silence. Not mourning, not crying, planning. Lana thought she'd won. She thought I was weak, broken, incapable. But she forgot who raised me. My father was a meticulous man, a war veteran, a math teacher, a man who filed every document twice, scanned every receipt, and kept every original locked away. He raised me to pay attention to the details others miss. And now, it was time to use every lesson. First, I went to the courthouse and pulled every file she had submitted. The forged power of attorney, the bank transfers, the property records. I cross-checked the filing dates. Something didn't add up. The document she used, it was supposedly notarized the day after my dad died. Sloppy. I took pictures, scanned everything, created backups. I wasn't just building a case. I was building a timeline, one that would expose her, piece by piece. Then, I reached out to a handwriting expert from Columbia. His name was Dr. Charles Weber. For 30 years, he'd testified in court on forged documents. He examined both copies of the power of attorney, mine and hers. His verdict: the second signature is inconsistent with the original. It lacks muscle memory. It's an imitation. Exactly what I needed. Next, I opened Facebook Marketplace. I scrolled for an hour, and there it was. My father's vintage mahogany desk listed under owner moving, must sell ASAP. The photos were unmistakable. That desk had a carved nick on the left leg. My father made that mark when I was 6, dragging it across the floor during our move. I screenshotted everything, sent a message pretending to be a buyer, got the address. Guess who answered the message? Lana. She had no idea who I was behind the screen. I needed more. I checked Instagram. Her account was private, but her friend Amber wasn't. Amber had posted stories. Stories of renovating the new house, showing off art pieces, and yes, the grand piano that used to sit in our family room. The caption read, "Thanks to Lana for the amazing score." Score, indeed. I started to see her whole scheme. She wasn't just taking things, she was rewriting history, making herself the rightful heir in the public eye. I gathered it all: photos, videos, timestamps. Then I did something painful. I called my Aunt Lana's mother. She and I hadn't spoken in years, but I knew Lana was using her name on certain legal correspondences. I told her everything. At first, she defended Lana, but when I sent her the side-by-side signatures, she went quiet. I didn't know. She said, "I thought Rachel was just unstable." That's what Lana told us. Unstable. That word, it echoed in my mind. Lana had built her entire con on that one lie that I was too emotionally damaged to handle things. It made people hesitate, doubt me, but it wouldn't make the judge doubt. After that, I went to Mr. Peterson again. We reviewed the notarization process. He confirmed that his notary public, Maria Henderson, had witnessed and signed the original with me present. We even had the timestamp from the registry. Her testimony would be bulletproof. The final straw, I pulled Lana's credit history. With legal help, I found out she'd taken out a $15,000 personal loan using my dad's name, 3 days after his funeral. She was spiraling fast, and I wasn't going to stop her. Not yet, because the more rope she gave herself, the harder she'd fall. When the package was complete, legal docs, expert testimony, notarization logs, social media evidence, transaction reports, I did one last thing. I called her. I wanted to hear her voice. I wanted her to lie to me directly. "Hey, Lana," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Rachel," she sounded surprised. Maybe even nervous. "Oh, wow, I didn't expect to hear from you. I just wanted to say thank you for taking care of Dad's place." There was a pause, then a breathy laugh. "Of course, sweetie. You needed time to heal. I told everyone you'd be okay." I bit my lip. "Right. Well, I'll be seeing you soon." Another pause. "Wait, what do you mean?" But I'd already hung up. I turned off my phone, packed my files, printed 2 copies, and the next morning, at exactly 8:01 a.m., I filed the full complaint with the Charleston County Court. Petition to invalidate fraudulent power of attorney. Demand for full restitution. Criminal referral attached. The clerk looked at me with wide eyes. "You really did your homework." I just nodded. Because I wasn't just getting justice. I was about to pull the curtain on Lana's little show. And the audience would be the entire courtroom. I didn't sleep the night I filed the complaint. Not because I was afraid, but because my mind was racing. I kept thinking about my father. The way he used to double-check every lock before bed. The way he'd hum Sinatra while doing taxes. The way he looked at me that last week, holding my hand in the hospital. His voice thin but clear. "You've always been the strong one. Rach." That sentence kept me awake. Not grief, not rage, but purpose. The morning after filing, I went back to Mr. Peterson's office. We reviewed the entire file. He said we'd done everything right, clean, professional, irrefutable, but I wasn't satisfied yet. "I want this to be bigger than just a court order," I told him. "I want her exposed." He raised an eyebrow. "You mean the press?" I nodded. He gave me the number of a local journalist, Sarah Klein, who specialized in probate and elder abuse. We met at a small coffee shop in Mount Pleasant. I showed her everything: documents, signatures, the TikToks, the sale listings. She took notes like a machine. "I'll need to verify it all," she said. But if this holds up, she's going to regret the day she picked your name. Good, I said. I want the world to know what she did. Meanwhile, Lana was still posting photos, now flaunting a beach trip to Myrtle with hashtags like deserved and air life. It made me sick. But I said nothing, because the trap was already set. 2 weeks later, the court summoned Lana to a preliminary hearing. She had no idea what was coming. The day arrived like thunder. I wore a black blazer, my father's favorite color. My hair pulled tight, my eyes hollow but sharp. I wasn't there to plead. I was there to win. Lana strutted in like she was going to brunch. Pearls, a white pencil skirt, and fake confidence. She didn't even glance my way. She sat down with her attorney, some overpriced, slick-haired man from Atlanta. You could tell he hadn't read the case. The judge walked in. The clerk called the case number. The courtroom fell quiet. And then it began. My attorney stood up and presented the facts, the original power of attorney, notarized, filed before my father's death. The fraudulent version submitted after, with a mismatched signature. Expert testimony from Dr. Weber, Maria Henderson's affidavit. Then the bombshell. Screenshots of Lana's listings, captions bragging about ownership, posts from friends tagging her at my dad's house, the $15,000 loan in his name, the timeline. It was like watching dominoes fall. Lana's smirk faded with every new exhibit. Then the judge asked, Ms. Meyer, did you submit this document? Lana's voice cracked. Well, I was told it was legal. The judge cut her off. Yes or no? She hesitated. Yes. That was enough. My attorney turned to the judge. Your Honor, this wasn't confusion. It was fraud. Calculated, sustained, and cruel. Silence. Then the judge turned to Lana's lawyer. Anything to say? The man stammered. We'd like time to, review these findings. The judge shook her head. This is serious. A person's estate was manipulated. A grieving daughter was gaslit. This court doesn't tolerate that. She paused, looked Lana dead in the eyes. The power of attorney you submitted is hereby nullified. All actions taken under its authority are invalidated. This matter will proceed to a full trial. Lana froze. But I didn't. I stood, calm, focused. As we exited, Sarah the reporter caught my arm. I have enough. This story's going live next week. I nodded, let it burn. Outside, the sky was gray, but I felt light. Not because it was over, but because it had finally begun. The world was about to see Lana for who she really was. Not a grieving relative, not a caretaker, but a thief in pearls. That afternoon, I didn't go home. Instead, I went to the house, my father's house. The locks had been changed again, but I didn't need to go inside. I stood on the sidewalk, watching as movers carried out boxes. Not Lana's movers, court-appointed ones. A repossession team. They didn't even glance at me, just did their job with quiet efficiency. One of them wheeled out the piano. Another carried a set of golf clubs I remembered from childhood. My chest tightened, but I didn't cry. Lana pulled up 30 minutes later. Her car screeched as it hit the curb. She jumped out, phone already at her ear, screaming at someone. What the hell is going on? She yelled at the movers. They ignored her. Then she saw me. Her face twisted. You think this is over? You think you've won? I didn't move. I just stared at her. You ruined my life, she hissed. You're so selfish. I tilted my head. I didn't fake anything. You did. Her mouth opened, then closed. You used my grief, I continued. You used my father's death. For likes, for furniture, for control. I deserved something, she spat. I helped him too. Then you should have waited for the will. She looked like she wanted to slap me, but she didn't. Because somewhere, even she knew, it was over. I turned and walked away. By the time I got home, the article was live. Front page of the local site. Charleston woman, accused of forging power of attorney, selling deceased relatives' belongings. My inbox exploded. Old friends, strangers, neighbors who'd believed her lies. Some offered apologies. Others offered praise. But I didn't respond. I didn't need validation. Justice was enough. And yet, one message did catch my eye. From a woman named Gloria. She said she was Lana's former roommate in college. She'd seen the article, and she had something to say. She's done this before. Gloria wrote, not with family, but with an elderly landlord. Same pattern, manipulation, signatures, loans. It nearly ruined his life. She attached screenshots, old complaints, warnings, an anonymous forum post. I stared at the screen, sick to my stomach. Lana wasn't a first-time offender. She was a professional, which meant I wasn't her only victim, and I might not be her last. I forwarded it all to my attorney, and I promised myself this time I wouldn't just win back what was mine. I would make sure she never did it to anyone again. Not under my name, not in my town, not ever. The trial date was set for 6 weeks later. 6 weeks of preparation, 6 weeks of silence. Lana tried everything. She filed motions to dismiss, claimed emotional trauma, said she was misled by a notary, even tried to paint herself as the victim of a misunderstanding, a grieving relative, confused in a moment of sorrow. But the evidence didn't lie. Every time she twisted the truth, my attorney had another receipt, another screenshot, another timeline entry that nailed her deception to the wall. I spent those weeks reviewing everything again and again, practicing my statement, rehearsing answers for cross-examination, memorizing facts, numbers, emotions. People think court is about law. It isn't. It's about story. And mine was solid. The morning of the trial, I sat in the car outside the courthouse, breathing through clenched teeth. I wasn't nervous. I was ready. The courthouse buzzed with quiet anticipation. Reporters waited by the entrance. One snapped a photo of Lana arriving in a navy suit and oversized sunglasses, as if trying to disappear. She couldn't, because inside that courtroom, she would be seen. The trial began with opening statements. Lana's attorney went first. He painted a picture of confusion, of miscommunication. He said Lana did what she thought was best and had no malicious intent. Then it was our turn. My attorney stood up, quiet but unshakable. This is a case of theft, not of money alone, but of trust, of legacy, of grief. A woman used deception and forged documents to seize control of a dying man's estate, while his only daughter mourned in silence. He let the words settle like dust. Then we began. First came the evidence, side-by-side signatures, expert testimony from Dr. Weber, who returned with even more detailed analysis. Maria Henderson, the notary, swearing under oath she was present when my father signed the original. Then I took the stand. I wasn't dramatic. I didn't cry. I told the truth. I spoke about my father, his habits, his values, how meticulous he was. I described our final days, how he looked when he signed the power of attorney, how I held his hand after. I talked about the morning I found the locks changed, the voice behind the door, the first seed of doubt. I let my silence between sentences carry the weight. TDS style, because sometimes what you don't say says everything. Then I described the unraveling, the fake documents, the sale listings, the comments online, the neighbors who stopped calling, the moment I realized I had been completely erased, and how I didn't scream. I built a case. I rebuilt my name, and I brought it all here. When I finished, there was no sound in the courtroom. Even the judge looked rattled. Lana didn't testify. Her lawyer advised against it. Instead, they submitted a written statement, a hollow, apology-laced, legally sanitized page of excuses. I didn't read it. I didn't need to, because her actions had already spoken. The closing arguments came fast. My attorney reminded the court of the pattern post-death filing, financial manipulation, social media performance, contradiction after contradiction. Then he said one line I'll never forget. She didn't just steal a signature. She tried to steal a life. And that was it. We waited. For 3 long hours, we waited. I paced outside. I watched a bird land on the stone steps. I drank 3 coffees I didn't need. And then the courtroom doors opened. The judge took her seat. Papers shuffled. Voices hushed. The verdict was delivered in a single, flat tone. Guilty of fraudulent misrepresentation, financial elder abuse, and perjury. I didn't smile. Not at first. Because the moment was too heavy. But then the judge continued, Ms. Lana Porter is ordered to return all misappropriated assets, pay restitution in the amount of $64,700, and is referred to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution. That's when I let myself breathe. Lana crumbled in her seat. Her hands covered her mouth. Her attorney tried to comfort her. It was a pathetic scene. But I didn't feel sorry. I felt free. The court adjourned. Reporters flooded the hallway, microphones in my face, flashes going off. Ms. Myers, do you have a comment? I turned to the nearest camera. Yes, don't ever let grief silence you. Don't let liars rewrite your story. That night, I returned home to my father's house. The locks were changed by me this time. I walked inside. It smelled like dust and old wood. But it was mine again. The first thing I did, I sat at his desk, opened the drawer, pulled out the only thing that ever mattered. A photo of us at the beach. I was 7. He was tanned, smiling, holding my hand. And for the first time since he died, I smiled too. The next morning, I woke up early. Sunlight spilled through the curtains like a soft apology. I made coffee in my dad's old percolator, something he swore made it taste less like cardboard. It gurgled and steamed like it remembered him. I sat on the back porch with the mug in my hands, watching squirrels skitter across the fence. The peace felt foreign, not because I didn't deserve it, but because I hadn't tasted it in so long. My phone buzzed. An email. From the district attorney's office. They were moving forward with criminal charges. 3 counts forgery, fraud, and elder abuse. They wanted a formal victim statement from me. I took a deep breath, then opened a new document. And I wrote not with fire this time, but with focus. I explained how it began, how Lana manipulated the grief of an entire family, how she turned mourning into a marketplace, how she lied with a straight face and smiled while doing it. I described the way it felt to be erased, not just from a house, but from my own story. And then I asked the court for something simple, not revenge, not spectacle, just accountability, because if Lana didn't face consequences, she'd do it again. Maybe to another cousin, maybe to a stranger, maybe to someone without the tools I had. She needed to be stopped. When I finished, I signed it. My full name, Rachel Elaine Myers. And for the first time since my father passed, I didn't feel like just a daughter left behind. I felt like a guardian of his name. And my own, after the court ruling, things didn't magically go back to normal. Because normal had died with my father. What I had now was something different, something sharper. Justice wasn't soft. It was steel. And I carried it with me every step I took inside that house. The media moved on quickly. The headlines disappeared after a week, but the echoes stayed. Neighbors looked at me differently, some with sympathy, others with shame. One afternoon, Mrs. Whitmore, our elderly neighbor from across the street, brought over a pie. She apologized. Said she believed Lana's story because she seemed so confident. I thanked her. But the truth was, Lana's confidence had always been her weapon. And people love a good lie when it's delivered with charm. In the weeks that followed, I cleaned out my father's house. Room by room, drawer by drawer, every corner held a memory, some sweet, some aching. In the attic, I found a box labeled, "For Rachel when she's ready." Inside a stack of letters, my father's handwriting, one for every birthday I hadn't yet had. He'd written ahead, planned ahead. That's who he was. I read the first one, dated for my next birthday. Rach, if you're reading this, it means I'm not there to tell you how proud I am, but I am. I always have been. Don't let the world harden you, but don't let it fool you either. Lead with your heart. Protect it with your spine. I cried harder than I had since the funeral, but this time, it healed something. A month later, I was asked to speak at a local seminar on estate protection. The organizer had read about my case. She said, "You turned pain into a lesson. That's rare." I agreed to speak, and when I stood at that podium in front of 80 strangers, I told them the truth. That grief doesn't just invite sadness, it invites predators. That silence is a vacuum, and someone will always try to fill it. That signatures can be stolen, but strength can't. Afterwards, a man came up to me, said his brother had done something similar to him after their mother passed. He hadn't spoken up. Until now. That made it worth it. But Lana, she was still facing consequences. The criminal trial was set. The DA was aggressive. The community was watching. I'd be called as a key witness. I prepared again like I had before. But this time, there was something else. Closure. The morning of her arraignment. I stood before the same courthouse. Same stairs, same nerves, but now, I wasn't walking in as the victim. I was walking in as the reason this would never happen again. Lana didn't speak much during that hearing. Her lawyer entered a plea deal. She admitted guilt on 2 of the 3 charges in exchange for reduced sentencing. 6 months probation, full restitution, a formal record that would follow her forever. Some people said it was too light. Maybe, but to me, it was permanent. She could no longer fake her way into someone else's life. Her charm had limits now, paper ones, legal ones. After the sentencing, she looked at me across the room. I didn't nod. I didn't blink. I just turned away. That was the last time I saw her. Weeks later, I reopened the house for the first time to guests. Family, friends, people who had known my father, who wanted to remember him the right way. We shared stories over coffee and old jazz records, laughed at his quirks, cried over the moments we lost. And for once, no one mentioned Lana. She had taken enough. As the evening quieted, I stood alone on the back porch. The air smelled like jasmine. I thought about legacy. Not the kind written in wills, but the kind written in memory. My father had trusted me, and I had honored that trust. Not with vengeance, but with truth. And now, every time I walk into that house, I feel it. Not her shadow, but his, and mine finally standing tall. In the weeks that followed, I began something unexpected. I started writing. At first, it was just a journal. Pages filled with half-thoughts, grief flashes, and things I wished I'd said to my dad. But slowly, it became a memoir. Not about Lana, not about court, but about legacy, what it means to carry someone's name, what it costs to defend it. Friends read early chapters. One of them, a librarian, said, "You need to publish this. It could help others." I laughed, but deep down I knew she was right. What happened to me wasn't rare. That's what made it horrifying. How many daughters had their grief stolen? How many families fell apart because one person decided their pain was more important than truth? So I wrote, at night, on weekends, between volunteer work with a local group advocating for estate reform, and with every page, I rebuilt more than a story. I rebuilt myself. Then something strange happened. I received a letter, not an email, a letter, handwritten. It was from Lana. I almost threw it out, but I didn't. Inside, she didn't apologize. Not really. She didn't ask for forgiveness. There were no tears on the paper. Just a single line. "You were always the one who saw through me." I read it once. Then I burned it. Because closure doesn't come from those who hurt you. It comes from the moment you stop needing their permission to move on. 6 months later, I stood at the edge of the garden my father used to tend. The roses had grown wild, vines wrapped around old fencing like they refused to be tamed, and I smiled. Because I finally understood something. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you protect when everything else tries to take it. And I had protected mine. I wasn't just the daughter of Richard Myers. I was the guardian of his truth, and the author of my own,